Hello, my name is Saria, and I'm here to recap to you Affair by Chao Planoy to highlight some of the differences between the novel and the series adaptation by Change. Spoiler alert to anyone who hasn't watched the show or read the book and wants to, and we are on chapter one. This is part one, you guys. Oh my gosh, we got here. We did a whole book, and now we're doing another one. I have to say that the TV adaptation is quite close to how the book goes, so I hope you guys are ready for a little bit of a rerun. Chapter 1 starts with 13 years ago, which is to say, the show starts with a little kissy koosie, and they do a little flashback. And this just begins with the flashback. So, Lookmhee Sonya did us a favor by giving us that in the show. Anyways, we're in Plang's head, and Plang hears Juan say, Plang, your song won a contest. Oh my god! And Plang's like, oh, my best friend, Juan Viva, also known as Juan, was screaming with my other friends that I had won the song contest and my song was playing on the radio. I composed the song, I composed the lyrics, and I played guitar. Ugh, I'm brilliant, and there is nothing I can't accomplish. So we're getting very quickly that Pling is very arrogant and very confident, which is makes a lot of sense because she's a rich girl. And while Juan is like celebrating with her friends, Pling's like, "Mm, no biggie, that's to be expected. I'm awesome." Juan says, gosh, Pling, I knew you were good. I just didn't know you were that good. Like, damn, you did everything? How are you so good at this stuff? And Plang's used to these compliments from Juan, but she's still kind of like, he. And Plang's like, oh, stop flattering me. I mean, what do you think I can't do? And Juan's like, starry eyed, being like, oh, there's nothing you can't do. And Plang's like, oh, winning's no big deal. And we're starting to really get a sense of their dynamic, right? Plang is obviously a rich girl who has gotten everything in life and is really confident and is generally pretty smart. And Juan is the friend who just adores her more than anything else in the world. Inside her head, Plang is like, I stand up with pride. Since I was born, I have never failed at anything. I was born with the word success written on my forehead. To be fair though, like honestly, if I had a friend like this, I'd be like, Jesus Christ. One then says, oh, it's good to be you Playing. You're beautiful, intelligent, and good at everything. God made you perfect. Now, I don't know about you, but if I had a friend who talked to me like that, I'd be like, what do you want from me? Playing literally goes like, oh, Juan, stop exaggerating. She flips her hair and she's like, if I were perfect, I wouldn't have won today. But I did. And playing in her head is saying how she wasn't a humble person, but she thought it was more annoying to reject a compliment. And she does have a point. Playing doesn't want to talk about her victory anymore, so she talks to Juan and she's like, so what about you? Did you take your test yet? Did you fail? Did you fail? And Juan's like, something like that. And then she's like, well, Playing, I'm just not as good as you. And Playing's like, well, because you have to focus, Juan. You don't have any determination, no ambition. You just have to concentrate. I know you're smart. And Juan's like, all right, maybe next time. And Playing's like, oh, you always say that. Playing is not happy about this because she knows that Juan is so smart. She just doesn't take anything in life seriously. She knows this because once she saw Juan trying to do a math problem and Plang was looking at the problem and she had difficulty even wrapping her head around how she was going to solve it. But then she saw Juan Weewa looking at the problem being like, this is so interesting. I love it. And she solves it pretty easily. Like Plang is pretty sure that Juan is super smart, but Juan just wants to play and compliment Plang, I guess. Plang then goes on to say they were born almost the same month. Juan was born 2 weeks before Plang was, and she was the daughter of the maid, but her family treated Juan just like a member of her family, and how they grew up kind of like sisters, so they knew each other super well. The second that they get home, Juan runs up to her mom, and she's like, Mom, Plang won another contest for a song that she wrote, and everybody in the family is like super pleased, and Juan's mom is like, I knew you could do it. And Plang's like, everybody, please don't make a big deal. It's not that important. I already have so many awards. But of course, she's taking the praise. Everyone's like, wow, Plang, you're so good, blah, 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 blah. Everyone's so happy for her. Juan's mom, Aunt V, is like, wow, I'm very proud of you. You are very smart. Juan's mom takes this opportunity to take a dig at her daughter, and she's like, oh, wow, look at you. You're so successful and smart. Even though my daughter was born near you and she studies with you, she's not nearly as good as you. And Juan's like, Mom, don't compare me with Playing. Jeez, that's like not fair. And Playing's listening to this, being like, mm, I mean, yeah, I'm better than everybody, but also it's not cool to put other people down because of my success. So then Juan's mom is eventually like, well, Juan, you're a good person, and that's more than enough. And Juan's like, yeah, I am a good person. I may not be good at anything, but that's enough. It's revealed that Juan's room is like within Plang's house, but it's separated by a utility area. And even though Plang even has asked Juan in the past to move into her room, she didn't want that. And for good reason. Anyways, they're both getting ready for bed, and Plang's like trying to find Juan. And Juan's just in her bed reading, and Plang knocks on her door, and she's like, hey, Juan, Juan, Juan. And then Juan's like, oh, are you still awake, Plang? And Plang's like, yeah, what are you doing? And Juan's like, oh, I'm reading a cartoon book. And Plang's like, oh, I see. Well, Juan's like, yeah, everyone says that your school days are the best time of your life. And I'm just trying to seize the day because these days are limited. And one day I'm going to have to work an endless job in an office. So I'm going to enjoy my childhood. And Plang's like, don't you want to become like a successful business owner or like some sort of executive? And one's like, nah, I wasn't born for greatness like you. And she's looking at Playing adoringly. And Playing's like, oh, you can't be so lazy. People might judge you. And one's like, oh, I don't know. I just, don't have the energy for that. You were born to make the world a better place. And Playing's like, what kind of compliment is that? But Playing is also like, that does sound nice. Maybe I was born to make the world a better place. And Playing is then like, well, even if that's the case, you should probably do something with your life too. Like, don't waste your life because life can just end without meaning. And Juan's like, why do I have to be ambitious? I'm fine. I'm happy. I live with you and I have everything I want. And Playing's like, well, you can't live with me for the rest of my life. What happens if I get married one day? And Juan's like, shit, I didn't really think of that before. She grabs her chest. She's like, ooh, that was a creepy idea. And Plang's like, wait, don't you ever think about getting married? And one's like, no, that's like so far away. Listen, I was like born by your side and I'm attached to you. And I've never thought about that because the thought of being away from you and separating from you just makes me sad. And suddenly Juan looks really depressed. And Plang is like, damn, that would depress me too. If we would ever have to be apart for some reason, we would miss each other so, so much. And then Plang is like, well, from now on, you should pay attention to your studies. You need determination and ambition to give your life meaning. And Juan's like, well, you can say that because you know what you want to do. And Plang's like, well, I have a dream. And Juan's like, well, I don't have a dream. I don't know. And she's making this cute expression, so Plang's like, oh gosh, Juan is like so cute. Don't be so cute. We're talking about some serious stuff, and this is all in her head. She's like, oh, my friend is so fucking cute. Like, why is she so cute? Juan suddenly notices that Plang's kind of looking at her, being like, oh gosh. And Juan's like, why are you looking at me with such pretty eyes? And Plang's like, because you're being so cute. And they're both like low key flirting. And then it's kind of awkward because I think they can even subconsciously realize that. And they're both so cute and they're both blushing. And one's like, it's so weird to hear all these compliments from you, Playing. It's not that normal for us. Playing's trying to get her shit together. And she's like, well, just be careful because being cute and pretty is for fools. And, a good woman shouldn't be pretty and cute. And one's like, wait, what? What does that even mean? And Playing's like, listen, men look at pretty girls and they think all sorts of things. They'll think that pretty girl, if they're talking to him, is like flirting. So we have to be strong and intimidate men, okay? Juan's like, right, okay, I'll be intimidating. And then she raises both her arms like Godzilla. She's like, Gah. And then Juan's like, do I look intimidating to you? And Pling's like, yes, you're so scary. Ugh, like, why don't you take anything seriously? And one's like, oh, I'm not good at everything like you. And Pling's like, I know you're smart, but you're always joking, so you seem more stupid than smart. And one's like, you're so strange today. First you said I'm pretty and cute, and now you're saying I'm smart. Are you okay? One's like, I almost prefer you complaining about me. And then Pling's like, I love you. And then Juan is like, whoa. And I guess Plang's all in her feels because she's like, oh, sorry, I'm just being weird today. I mean, like, I care about you. I want you to do well. And ooh, and suddenly Juan jumps to hug her. And she's like smelling Juan so deeply. She describes her smelling like baby powder and refers to Juan as a small baby who smelled like milk. And I guess that is a recurring theme throughout the book. And Plang's like, oh, why are you hugging me? And Juan's like, I'm so shy from you complimenting me. I just like I can't even make eye contact. Like today you said I'm cute, I'm smart, and you just said that you love me. It makes me so nervous. And Plank's like, "Oh, okay, so you want to give me a hug because of that?" And she's just like patting her on the back, being like, Plank is like, it's so odd that you're shy because we've known each other for a very long time. And one's like, yeah, we've been together for most of our lives. And Playing says, we're only 17, so why do you talk like we're like old grannies? And one says, I don't want to be separated from you for even more than one day. And Playing's like, yeah, I agree. I wouldn't want that either. And one's like, okay, Playing, if you get a boyfriend or get married one day, I'm gonna be so, so alone. She like releases Playing from the hug and she's like, what would I do then? I don't have any plans for the future. She's looking at Playing for a really long time. And Playing is getting lost in her big brown eyes. She's just like thinking and thinking. They're having a moment, and then one's like, all right, I think I know the solution. And Playing's like, huh? And one's like, I'm just gonna have to get a boyfriend before you do. And that's how chapter one ends. Oh, here we go, you guys. I didn't mention that chapter one was called Juan Viva, so I'll mention that chapter two is called Promise. And this, of course, is the scene when Plang brings Juan to an art gallery in attempts to find a boyfriend. Juan's like, why are we here? And obviously here refers to a art gallery. And Juan has clearly never been to one. She's like following Plang around like a little puppy. And Plang's like, obviously we're here to look at paintings. And Juan's like, I don't really understand these paintings, do you? And Plang's like, not really. And Juan's like, so why are we here? And Plang's like, we are here to find boyfriends. And Juan's like, is that right? Plang's like, listen, your plan was to find a boyfriend before me, so I took you to a place where you could probably find someone good. And one's like, I don't see anybody suitable here. And Plang's like, all right, let me explain. Plang's like, if you want a nice boy, you gotta come to a nice place like this. I'm gonna teach you a lesson. And one's like, right. And Plang's like, okay, because this is a nice place, the boys who hang out here like art, which means they have style. And it also means that they have money to buy the paintings. So it's like you're trying to target this specific demographic, right? One's like, "Oh, God, this makes my head hurt, but I guess if you think it's good, then it's good." And Blaine's like, oh my God. Don't you get it though? Like, we grew up together. I care about you. I don't want you to just date some random loser. If you want to look for someone, you gotta look in the right place. And one's like, I don't really care about anybody who like wants to paint or something. And Plague's like, what kind of guy do you like? And one's like, I don't know, a good one. Maybe I can just go pray at the temple. Plague's like, don't tell me you want to date a monk. And one's like, no, that would be sinful. And then they walk around the art gallery some more, but there's not that many people there. But then they turn around and they see a young boy around their age who looks pretty cute looking at the paintings. Plang's like, that boy looks interesting. Are you interested at all? One's like, And Plang's like, no, no, no. Like, see, like, if you're looking for a boyfriend, that's the kind of guy you're looking for. Like, look, he's got good taste because he's here. And then suddenly this guy turns around and he's facing them because he's clearly overheard them talking because I don't think they're being that subtle about it. And Plang's like, he's got good features, thick eyebrows, high nose. He could be rich in the future. This is good. And one's like, I think he's coming over here. Fuck. Plang is like, oh shit. And then they run to the other side of the gallery. But he's like following them. And then Plang's like, who do you think he's looking at? Me or you? And one's like, it's obviously you. Why would he look at me? And in her head, Plang is like, yeah, makes sense because people usually look at me first. And Plang's like, well, do you think that's a good or a bad thing? And one's like, he could get angry that we were talking about him right in front of him. Or, I don't know, maybe he's not interested in you. I don't know, men always are trying to get you. And Blake's like, oh my God, shut up, that's not true. And they run to the women's bathroom to like hide from him. And they're acting as if he's like some sort of crazy person. But the two of them are giggling because obviously this has just become a game. And one's like, why are we hiding in here? He doesn't really seem like a bad guy. And Blake's like, I don't know. And one's like, maybe he wants to meet you playing. And Blake's like, I don't really care. I don't want to meet him. Maybe he wants to meet you. And one's like, I don't really care either. And Blaine's like, well, I thought you wanted to have a boyfriend before me. If you're not like open minded about stuff, then you're never gonna get a boyfriend. And one's like, I'm not in a hurry. And suddenly Plang's phone rings, and Juan's like, oh, you should probably pick that up. And so she picks it up. She's like, oh, it's Frank. Hey, Frank. And Frank's like, where the fuck are you? I'm at your house, but you're not here. Like, we had a plan. And Plang's like, oh, fuck, I made plans with Frank to like meet up, but like because of this whole like Juan needs to get a boyfriend before me thing, I like totally forgot about him. Playing's like, I gotta go. I made an appointment with Frank, and Juan's like, wait, you're leaving, and you're gonna go meet Frank? What's up with that? Is he trying to flirt with you? And Plank's like, no, we've known each other since we were kids. I don't think he thinks of me that way. And Juan's like, listen, men and women just cannot be friends, all right? And it just seems like you guys are getting awfully close. I knew it. If you get a boyfriend, I'll feel so alone. And as Juan pouts, Playing is like chuckling and trying to comfort her and be like, listen, you're crazy. Even if I have a boyfriend, you'll still be my friend. You're so important to me. And Juan's like, well, things will obviously change if you get a boyfriend. It's painful just thinking about it. And Playing's like, oh, Juan, you don't have anything to worry about. It's impossible with Frank. Playing's like, let's go home. And Juan's like, okay, but let me go to the bathroom. And so Playing's waiting for her outside the bathroom. And when one comes back, she's just kind of like, spaced out. Playing is like, Juan, what's up with you? Why are you so out of it? And Juan's like, oh, um, nothing. Playing knows Juan so well. She's like, you're clearly lying. She's like, something happened. Like, what happened? Tell me what happened. And Juan's like, well, that boy asked me for my number. Playing's like, huh? The guy who followed us? Juan's like, yeah. And Playing suddenly is like, a strange feeling started forming in my chest. Juan looked so shy. I felt a mix of agitation and confusion. Playing's like, we're going home. And she just like walks ahead of Juan, not even waiting for her. And Juan's like, why are you angry with me? And Playing's like, no reason. And Juan's like, are you mad because that boy asked for my number? And Playing's like, no. Why should I be upset? Like, whatever. And Juan's like, and Playing's like, what? Spit it out. And Juan's like, well, I thought you maybe are upset because he asked for my number instead of yours. And Playing's like, I don't envy you. And Juan's like, I didn't say you envied me. Playing, do you like that boy? Playing's like, no. And then Playing's like, did you give him your number? And suddenly the gallery's all quiet. So then Playing's voice is like booming throughout the art gallery, which I'm sure if you've ever been to an art gallery, it's probably like really echoey and spacey. And then the security guard is like, yo, 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 what's happening? Is everything okay? And Playing's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for raising my voice in this quiet space. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Come on, let's go. When they finally get home, they don't say anything to each other. And clearly, Juan's upset, Playing's upset. Juan was flustered at the gallery because that boy asked for her number, but she's quickly turned very pale and very sad. And Playing's very satisfied at her guilt and paleness, I guess. So Juan kind of goes to her room and Playing goes to the living room and Frank's there waiting for her. Frank's like, hey girly, like, why are you so upset? You fighting with Juan or something? Frank is the son of one of Playing's dad's friends, so they've been close since they were little kids. So Playing is like, how did you know that? And Frank's like, well, you don't have that many friends. So if you are fighting with someone, it's gotta be Juan Viva. And Playing's like, excuse you, I have friends. And Frank's like, not as far as I'm aware. Playing takes a moment to describe that Frank used to be a chubby little kid who looked very different from everybody. But now he's a grown man who's like kind of good looking. And he started looking at Playing differently. Playing's like, all right, well, you know why you're here. Where's the movie I ordered? And he's like, damn, okay, let me get it. And he brings out this CD and Playing grabs it. Playing's like, oh my God, I'm so happy. One more thing to add to my collection. Oh, Meg Ryan's my girl. And Frank's like, this one was a hard one to find. And Playing's like, you're a good friend. Thanks a million. And Frank's like, well, what am I going to get in exchange for this? And Playing's like, Playing is noticing that he's looking at her very differently. So she asks, what do you want? Frank's like, well, do you want to watch the movie together? And Playing's like, oh, why? Playing is like so gay. Playing does not want to give him any false hope, and she does not like him. So she's like, And Playing's like, so are you gonna go? And Frank's like, oh my God, are you just kicking me out after you got what you wanted from me? And Playing's like, yeah, I want to watch this movie now. So like, I'll talk to you later. And Frank's like, fine, that makes sense. So then Frank drives off in his Japanese luxury car. And then Playing is like, Juan, 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 where are you? Let's watch the movie. I finally got it. And then she remembers that she's like mad at Juan. She's like, oh, I actually want to watch it alone. And then Juan appears and is like, Playing. And Playing's like, what are you doing here? And Juan's like, I was waiting for you to finish talking to Frank. And Playing sees Juan's guilty expression and immediately feels like, not angry anymore. And Plang's like, "Were you spying on us?" And Juan's like, "Well, you were gonna watch the movie with him, weren't you? I thought you said you didn't like him." Plang's like, "I don't like him, but he's so nice to me and he got this movie for me, so like I kind of gotta like make it up to him." And Juan's like, "Well, when is he gonna be your boyfriend?" And Plang's like, "I don't know." And then that makes Juan look even sadder. And Plang's like, "Are you really that worried that I'm gonna get a boyfriend?" And Juan's like, "Yeah." And then Play's like, "Well, you gave your phone number to this other guy." And one's like, "Well, I gave it to him just in case, you ever like got a boyfriend and I just like don't want to feel lonely." Playing's like, "That's the reason you gave him your number?" And Playing's like, "Juan has like never really been interested in any guy, and if I was the reason why she'd even talk to one, that makes sense." Playing's like, "Will that guy help you with your loneliness?" And one's like, "No, no one could ever replace you. Ever." And this honest answer makes Plang's heart skip a beat, and she's like finding herself starting to blush. And she's like, "Well, no one can replace you either, so I'd rather watch a movie with you than with Frank any day." And one's like, "So why don't we go upstairs and watch it then?" Her eyes are shining, and Plang's like, "I'm so happy that we're making up, and I've already forgotten why we were fighting in the first place." And Plang's like, "Of course, I want to watch it with you." And so they go upstairs and they watch a movie called The City of Angels starring Meg Ryan. And Plang just goes on a tangent being like, "I love Meg Ryan. Meg Ryan's so beautiful. She's every man's dream girl." And there's something really queer about the way that she's fixated on her. She's like, "I like Meg Ryan's smile. I like how her whole face smiles. I just like it feels so familiar." And then she looks at Juan while she's watching the movie and she's like, "Oh, Juan also smiles like that. A smile that like uses her whole face." And then Juan turns to Playing and she's like, "What? Why do you keep looking at me?" And Playing's like, "Oh, nothing." And she's embarrassed because Juan caught her staring at her while they're watching this movie. And Juan's like, "Why do you like this movie?" And Plang's like, "Well, I like the plot, and the main actor is an angel who feels nothing, but becomes curious about Meg Ryan's character, who's a doctor. Oh, God, I love her in this movie." And Juan's like, "Oh, so you like doctors?" And Plang's like, "I don't know, they're like a respectable occupation." Plang also says, "Well, I just like doctors because I always get sick, and it's just good to have a doctor nearby." And Juan's like, "Should I become a doctor?" And Plang's like, "Really?" And one's like, "Yeah, why not?" And Plang's like, "Listen, if you want to be a doctor, you could be a doctor. If you put your mind to it, I know you can achieve anything, but not that focused. You don't have a dream. Look at Meg Ryan. She's driven and determined. She rides her bike to work every day, even though she's a doctor. Look at you. Have you even finished your homework today?" And one's like, "No." One's like, "No. But from today forward, I'm going to decide to be a doctor. After finish watching this movie, I'm going to go do it." And Plang's like, "It would be great if you could be a doctor." And Juan's like, "I can be your doctor, so I can be at your beck and call." And Plang's like, "Right." And Juan's like, "Why don't you sound like you believe me? Like you don't think I can do it or something?" And Plang's like, "No, no, no, you definitely can." She's like, "Okay, well, if I become a doctor, what are you going to give me?" And Plang's like, "Huh?" And Plang's like, "Well, why don't you make it happen first, and then we can discuss what I can give you." And Juan's like, "Really? You're going to give me anything I ask for?" And Plang's like, "Okay, well, like, what do you want?" And one's like, "I don't know yet, but I'll remember this promise. And you need to remember it too, because one day I will be a doctor." And that's the end of the chapter. All right, stay tuned. I'm gonna leave a link, of course, as always. And thank you for staying tuned. And thank you for watching the first part. I am a little bit concerned that this is far too close to the show. So let me know if that's something that you guys are conscientious about. And I'm also thinking of just doing like shorter summaries so that we can get through the book more and then we can do more chapters that way. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think because this is all for you and I love these series anyways, so I like rereading them, but I would love to make content that you guys like to consume as well. So stay tuned and I'll see you guys very soon.